Good evening and welcome to Trojans Talk on Tap on LBC Trojan Channel. Thank you for joining us this evening. Very pleased to have probably a familiar guest to some of you. This is Tony Altimore with he's the host of our Voice of College Football USC channel post game show live. We were on the show last night. Tony, welcome. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. It's a big day for SC today.
Big news today, as you know, within the last 3 hours, Alex Grinch, defensive coordinator for USC, was fired, terminated. And this is something that we talked about last night after the game. That game, Tony, as you pointed out, was it turns out that was the 52 points were the most points ever allowed by the University of Washington versus USC, which was totally unacceptable. USC needed a stop on several occasions.
By a lot.
And it wasn't just this game, Tony. It was a culmination of a number of games. And last night on the Voice of College Football post-game show, I think we were both of the opinion that Alex Grinch needs to be removed. We had a discussion afterwards that possible timeline that can happen. Our other co-host, Tim Prangley Jr., had mentioned wasn't his opinion that you changed the DC in the middle of the year, but he needed to take a look at the game. He was live at the game like I was, and but we had seen enough. We saw Arizona State. We saw what happened after that at Colorado. Opportunity for a national stage, giving up 41 points to the Colorado Buffaloes, and subsequently how much they have declined as a team. We pretty much made their season that day, even in a loss. We took a national hit. Then you come home to the University of Arizona, and the University of Arizona, well, it was getting a little bit better, but you don't go down 17-0 at the Coliseum and rebound, and you have to go to triple overtime and barely eke out a what was it, a 1-point win, giving up over 40 points, and then you go, to South Bend, another national stage, prime time on NBC, and we saw what happened there. And then you come home to University of Utah. That game is circled from what happened last year. You have a backup quarterback. You don't have Cam Rising, and you lose on the last second field goal at the Coliseum.
It was ugly.
Then we go up to Cal, and we give them we let them score the second most points against USC in their history of over 100 games. And again, Jaden Ott, he ran so much, he apparently got hurt in the second half, but he had three first half TDs. They score 49 points. Mendoza looks like a seasoned quarterback running.
John Elway.
Exactly. You don't give up 49 points. That was a win, but it was a loss. It was a loss. And then you come back, another chance on a national stage, 7:30 at night, Pacific, East Coast time. Number 5, Washington rolls in, and you do what you did. You give up 52 points. The bleeding had to stop. And walk us through, Tony, what do you think happened last night up until noon, 12:30 today, when the decision was made public by Keely Ewer?
So I don't want to. I mean, I can't really speculate because I don't know what went on in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at how Lincoln Riley has steadfastly refused to talk about the issue, Lincoln Riley's refused to acknowledge there was a problem. I mean, he knows there's a problem, right? But he did not want to step in and talk about, oh, we're going to make changes, we're going to do anything like that. It's funny. So those of you guys watching don't know this, but Rick and I talked this morning. Rick gets up really early. So we talked at about, 7 Pacific time, about 10 East Coast time. And I said, for them if they make a change today, Jen Cohen's got to talk to Lincoln Riley. They got to have the lawyers and the HR people in there. They're going to have to tell the team first. I said, we wouldn't know until like noon Pacific, like about 3 Eastern at the earliest. And sure enough, at exactly 12:24 Pacific time, the announcement went out from Katie Ryan. I think that the school decided that they had enough. Just that a change had to be made. Just if nothing else, a change for change's sake. I mean, we didn't stop Washington at all. In fact, aside from that Eric Gentry fluke, bounce it around interception, they scored every time in the second half. So it literally, I mean, mathematically can't be worse than letting them score every time. So, making a change, releasing that pressure. I mean, these teams teams feel the outside pressure. And so I think that releasing that pressure from the team, making a change, lets them, refocus their heads. It lets the fans get behind them. Like, one of the hardest things for a team is they know the fans are furious. And so I think it recenters the fans around the team too.
Yeah, and one of the things too that if you watch the Lincoln Riley press conference after the game, there was a question that was asked about the defense, and he didn't really want to go into that. There would be time at the end of the season. So, in his mind, I mean, based on his comments, it would be fair that this wasn't his decision. Would you agree with that opinion?
I mean, again, just
I
my
mean,
personal guess
let
is
me back that up. Let me back that up. He went along with it, but I don't believe, based on his comments at that press conference last night, that within 12, 14 hours he was
he
going to
was
make a
making a
change.
change.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
I
would
would
think
guess
that
this
he
was a
had
change.
well,
I would guess this was a decision that he kind of had the option to make the right decision.
yeah, okay.
Remember one thing. So we are very lucky. Remember, in life we learn from experiences, and sometimes those are good experiences, and sometimes they're not. We learn from our mistakes. I think Lincoln Riley will learn from this mistake that this should have happened earlier. But our AD Jen Cohen learned from this mistake with Jimmy Lake and Donovan, who is Lake's offensive coordinator, and how
Yes.
bad that went before she came in and really rearranged Washington. And so we at USC have the benefit of the lessons that Jen Cohen learned about staffing changes when they needed to be made with Jimmy Lake. And I think that we got to see the benefit of that today with Alex Grinch. But again, that's just my personal guess. I could be wrong. We'll find out more someday when the history books are written.
Yeah, it's
Sergeant Pickles, dubs up. Good win last night.
Sergeant Pickles, thank you so much for doing the preview show. Little did we know that that this was going to end the way it did. Stick around. I've got a very special upgrade your tailgate craft beer recommend, and I think you might like it. Perhaps you've had it before. But Tony, moving on, we talked about the Grinch, Grinch getting fired. He gave Lincoln Riley had a lot of support for this year. He decided to keep Grinch after last year. The defense wasn't spectacular. We saw how it ended, giving up over 40 points in two losing efforts in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah, and then losing in stunning fashion the last 8 minutes to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl, 46-45. All in all, USC's defense was ranked above 100 in scoring points allowed, and they had 4 games where the defense gave up 40 or more points. You move on to this year, Alex Grinch was retained by Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley provided some support, additional support. He had hired an offensive coordinator and offensive analyst in Cliff Kingsbury, a defensive analyst, 3 defensive analysts, including senior defensive guy Greg Brown and 2 other junior defensive guys. So many believe that this was going to be the time for Lincoln Riley to become a CEO, oversee the team, pay more particular attention to the defense, because that seemed to be plaguing Lincoln Riley. After last year, it was his 6th year as a head coach, if you include the 5 years at Oklahoma. And then we come to this. We come to this where through 10 games, the defense has already given up 40 points 5 times this year. And last year, the last 2 games, that was a record back-to-back, giving up a total of 93 points. They just broke that record last week, giving up 49 to Cal and 52 to Washington. That's 100. That's 101 points. And so, do you think that this was the right time to fire Alex Grinch, or should they have waited till the end of the year?
I don't think they should wait at the end. I think they needed to make a change. They needed to show that the grown-ups are in charge. That's what I think that today did. Today showed the grown-ups are in charge. We know there's a problem. Now, I will say, I do believe if Lincoln Riley had gone, I mean, whoever is advising his press conferences, I think is not doing what needs to be done. Or maybe he's not listening. I don't know which one. But he should have gone into those press conferences after Notre Dame, after Cal, after Arizona, and said, what's happening right now on defense is not working, and we're going to make changes. We're just not going to make them today because we are in the middle of the season. We're doing what we need to, but we hear you. We know there's a problem. Instead, he goes, oh, well, we're like one play away from being able to win the game. And he kept showing that he did not understand the degree of the problem. It was like he was not acknowledging the problem. And I think that was really dumb. So, I think it had to be made. I think today showed the grown-ups are in charge. I don't begrudge him not making it a year ago. Because this is the thing, is we got a whole bunch of new players. He really liked the scheme for different reasons. He really liked what was going on with it and wanted it to work. And, given the massive shift in personnel, the new people coming in, to say, yeah, hey guys, this is what we're building. I think we should give it a chance to work is fair. But at the same time, we got to a point where it wasn't working and you had to make a change. And our user right there just pointed out they needed a change today. I agree completely. I think they needed a change. They need to show the grown-ups are in charge. And we saw something really interesting this week. We saw two brilliant, awesome, badass female ADs step in and make a really difficult coordinator decision that the head coach didn't want to make. We watched Beth Gates at Iowa fire Brian Ferentz, and today I think we watched Jen Cohen at USC fire Alex Grinch.
Absolutely. And this YouTube user is a longtime friend of mine and a very devout, loyal Trojan fan. Shelly Major.
Fight on YouTube user.
And she comes from a family of a lot of Trojan supporters, and I know they echo the sentiment. What took so long? And they're very happy that a change was made because they've watched a lot of USC football like you and I have, Tony, and this is not the expectation. I see LW is here. LW, thank you for joining in. He's a longtime Alabama Crimson Tide. He knows about championship football, and championship football is one with defense.
Roll Tide, LW.
Yeah, is one with defense. And defense hasn't been played at USC for probably 10 years since Lane Kiffin and Ed Orgeron had that 2013 year. Believe it or not, he got fired in the 5th game of the year, but that defense with Sua Cravens and Deion Bailey, they were the number 16
they were pretty good
ranked team in the country, and that was with a depleted roster because of the sanctions. So let me share with you, Tony put together some graphics, and let's talk about why a decision was made. And this is just, I guess I like to say, stats don't lie, people do. And maybe Lincoln Riley has been camouflaging the truth. But this is the issue. Tony, why don't you walk through these numbers with us?
Sure. So this is how average points allowed against Power 5 opponents by every USC coach since World War II, really, that's actually been fired. So we've had 7 firings of coaches since they're actually all since the 80s, but really going back to World War II, we've or as the founding of the pack in the 50s, we've only fired 7 coaches. So this is looking at the defense. And I mean, obviously, guys, the game is different every year. History is different. Teams are different, offensive. But I just wanted to see, how is this defense as bad as we think? And it turns out actually this defense gave up more points than any staff that's ever been fired. They're worse defensively than every staff that we've fired. Whether that was the end of Helton, the end of Sark, the end of Hackett, the end of Kiffin, the end of Robinson, the end of Tolner, or the end of Smith. I mean, guys, we fired Larry Smith. They were only giving up 19 points a game. It seems so quaint, as we give up 38. But
Larry Smith was, and this happens, and today it'll be remembered. Washington taking down Alex Grinch. Now, it wasn't a head coach, obviously, but it was the defensive coordinator. And things that get you fired are memorable. And Larry Smith was fired because of that Freedom Bowl loss to Fresno State. And he began that 1992 season tying San Diego State 31-31 down in San Diego. And he also lost to UCLA by a point. So that culminated in a lot of USC alums, boosters, and leadership to make a change. And that's what happened apparently last night and this
Well,
morning.
should we look at how bad it is over history?
Let's take a look.
So this is every game that USC has ever played against Washington, Cal, Notre Dame, and Arizona. Literally, since, going back to leather helmets for some of these. Every game USC has ever played against Washington, Cal, Notre Dame, and Arizona, and how many points the defense gave up. And Alex Grinch gave up more points than any other USC team this season alone, just this season, against Washington and Arizona than USC ever has in its history. The second most since Cal, and we've been playing Cal since USC was a one building nothing in the middle of a mustard field outside a dusty, waterless village. Okay? Literally, the school was in a mustard field, and Alex Grinch is the worst defense we've had, or second worst defense we've had, going back to the mustard field days. And Notre Dame is the fourth, and that includes all of the crazy bad stuff that went on in the 60s, when Era Parsegian was on a vendetta. So looking back at it, this was just bad.
Yeah. And Sergeant Pickles got a great comment here. Not to pour salt, but I have no idea how SC has that bad a defense considering their recruiting classes.
Neither
and that
does
is a great
SC.
point. A great point because they just upgraded their talent, not only high school recruiting, but through the transfer portal. And that's what gave Alex Grinch another year with Lincoln Riley. And yet, was it the scheme? Was it the players? Didn't have a lot of injuries. I think some people will be of the opinion we didn't have a Thule on defense this year. For some reason, we didn't have the number of turnovers that we forced last year, which was really a godsend. It was an aberration. It wasn't what you can expect. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Yeah, and I would also add sometimes this stuff is almost like dating, right? It looks like it should work, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't.
That's
yeah, it just did. Okay, we got all these ingredients, and it should work, and it work. We think it's gonna work, and it just for whatever reason just doesn't gel. And I think that's kind of what happened here for whatever reason. Alex Grinch is a smart guy. He's a good coach. He's going to probably go be great somewhere else at some point. I just think he wasn't right for USC right now.
And another thing to think about is that Lincoln Riley,
which by the way, also same thing with Lane Kiffin, who's a pretty good coach. Sark, who's a pretty good coach. Just the times when they were here just weren't the right times.
That's a great point because you look at Sark right now. They just defeated Kansas State. They're the number 7 team in the latest AP poll. You look at Lane Kiffin. They just beat Texas A&M. They are the number 10 team. And I believe you have Alabama at number 8. So they got a Saban sandwich. You got Kiffin
and it's
at
not
10.
Always us, too, because,
Yeah.
I remember when we were not very happy at all because USC ended up with some loser who just washed out of the Patriots.
Pete Carroll.
And that worked out.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll worked out. So, that's the thing is, sometimes these things look like they shouldn't work and they do. And sometimes they look like they should work and they don't. So what I think is important here is that the adults took over the room today. And they said, okay, we're going to make a change. And you know what? We may go to Oregon and get blown out. We may go to Oregon and be like, oh my God, maybe Grinch wasn't the worst. Who knows? We might go to Oregon and win. It's Pac-12 after dark. Anything can happen. But we don't know what's going to happen. But the thing is I think we're at a point where you're going to make it. You need to make a change. We knew too that Alex Grinch was not going to be back next year. Everybody knew that. So what were you doing? Now you can make the case, and this is what Beth Gates did at Iowa, right? With Brian Ferentz, is that she said, we'll finish the season with Brian. I mean, they're in first place in the Big Ten West, but she said, we'll finish the season here and then we'll move on. USC said, no, we're just going to make a change now.
Yeah. And today it was announced that Sean Nua and Brian Odom were promoted to co-DCs for the balance of the season. Alex Grinch was also the safeties coach. Taylor Mays was
sat next to his parents at
an
a
analyst
game once.
And Taylor Mays has been named safeties coach to replace Alex Grinch. So congratulations to those three gentlemen.
Is his mother tiny?
As they are in charge of the defense for the last 2 games and possibly a bowl game.
Is Taylor Mays, is his mother
Tony, your
tiny?
thoughts on the interim DCs and Taylor Mays?
Well, Taylor Mays, is his mother tiny? Because I think I sat next to her at a football game once at Notre Dame.
I don't know.
I believe it was her.
Okay.
And then I was next to this really sweet lady, like the nicest mom in the world, who was so nervous because the guy in her son's position had gotten hurt in the game before, and her son was making his first ever start for USC at Notre Dame. And he was a skinny kid from Orange County. I said, don't worry, Mrs. Sanchez. I'm sure he'll do great. And that worked out. Sanchez did fine. But no, I'm excited for Taylor Mays. I think that's exciting. Sean Nua and Brian Odom, both great coaches. Sean Nua. The other thing, guys, and this sounds really dorky to say, and it probably people are gonna yell at me for being a lefty or whatever. But coaching is something where we need to give more opportunity. So let's let Sean Nua call the plays, because you know what, Sean Nua is a pretty good coach. So let's see what he's got calling the plays. And what do you want to bet he finds a way to beat UCLA or Oregon? Wouldn't surprise me in the least. I mean, wasn't Odom calling the plays when Grinch left? Didn't Odom beat Oregon?
I don't know.
I think I could be wrong in the chat. They're gonna come after me. I thought Odom beat Oregon in a Alamo Bowl or I don't know, one of those.
Are you talking about when he was at OU?
Yeah.
That could be possibly it, because they did play OU. I mean, OU did play Oregon in the Alamo Bowl, and I believe, yes, the coaches were already gone. I don't know who was.
I thought Odom called him. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was pretty sure he did. So, and I don't remember the exact game, but I mean, again, these are guys who deserve a shot. So you know what? Let's give them their shot.
I have some friends texting me right now saying only about 9 games too late for firing Grinch. I'm on multiple chats and I've been getting notifications. And so one of the things, this is a good time to reset, because Lincoln Riley's the head coach and he has some blind spots. And so maybe this new leadership, I think you said the adults have spoken, Tony. Maybe the adults have reminded Lincoln Riley where you're at. The things you said at the press conference. You did come to USC, you said, to win national championships. It's the mecca of college football. This is what we heard when you were at your press conference. And I just want to go ahead and rattle off some numbers. So Lincoln Riley, memo to you. Okay, yes, there have been 7 national championships since 1960. Okay, and McKay has won 4. Robinson has won 1. And Pete Carroll has won 2. And the ranking of those defenses, because they won championships, ranged from 3 to 17. That's what wins championships. And that's what USC alum, boosters, fans, students, and guests, they understand. They've seen it. They've seen the history. They study the history of USC football. And we know what we see. And there was a lot of people sitting around me yesterday, couldn't believe that we could not get one stop against the University of Washington. So Lincoln Riley, it's time to address the defense. This is your 7th year. Are you going to be a great offensive coordinator that may leave for the NFL? Or are you going to be a national championship college coach? If you are, you need to change the defense because we're currently ranked number 124 in the nation in defense, giving up 34 and a half points a game this season through 10 games. That number can rise. Who knows? And going to Oregon, Tony, I'd like to get your opinion. But Oregon is on a national stage next week, even though it's Pac-12 after dark. They are in the college football playoff picture, sitting outside at number 6 or number 7, behind Washington. They need to make a statement and beat USC so they can face Washington again. Dan Lanning is a chippy coach. It's well known. He likes to get on video.
I kind of like him.
Yeah, in sound bites. And so it wouldn't surprise me to pull out all the stops. I can see a what's your deal kind of Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll kind of game with Lincoln Riley. He would love to take it to Lincoln Riley. Oregon would love to take it to USC. And I can see 70 points being put up. And I can see Dan Lanning kicking an onside kick in the 4th quarter. That's what I can see.
Oh, he would totally do that. Yeah,
because
Dan Lanning would totally do that. By the way, I say that admirably.
Yeah.
I say that admirably that Dan Lanning would totally do that because I love Dan Lanning. Yeah, I don't know what we'll see. I mean, here's the thing, guys. If this defense, if the players can play inspired, and again, maybe you guys remember the players are like 19-year-old kids. They feel the weight of this on their shoulders. They hear the boos in the stands. And so releasing that pressure might just give them what they need to win. I mean, here's the wonderful thing about USC is we think that we have been catastrophically bad because we had college football playoff aspirations. About 90 teams would give anything to be us. So when you think about it like that, like we have everything we need to win this game. Now, we might lose 70-40, but we have everything we need to win this game too. And if we can get a few stops, they are not invincible as much as we think they are. They lost. I mean, heck, they lost to Washington. There is potential for us to be able to pull something off here. We could win the game. We might get killed. It might be close. I think this is I would listen to tarot cards before I listen to ESPN experts on this one because I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, it's gonna be a defining moment in the season, but at least there's a fresh start. I guess there's hope. I just want to remind everybody, hope is a 4-letter word. So
we'll take it.
Take it with a grain of salt. But let's talk about, Tony. Obviously, USC is going to be going to the Big Ten and going to be playing LSU August 31st in Las Vegas. There's a challenging schedule that's ahead in 2024, moving the Big Ten Conference. There's a lot of realignment happening, a lot of different teams. So I think it's a great move that they made the decision now because you know what? It wasn't going to be sustainable. Who are some of the candidates that you see? Because there's going to be changes, head coaches getting fired. There's going to be maybe some coaches that don't want to, or defensive coordinators that maybe have a little bit more experience because they've been in the Big Ten Conference.
Oh, did I just freeze or did Rick?
Currently out there. Drop us a few that you think that USC should be considering.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the easy names. I mean, everybody's going to throw out there, hey, what if Dave Aranda gets fired? Everybody's going to throw out there, hey, wouldn't Jim Leonard be great? There's a lot of names, but there's also like a lot of, I'm gonna throw myself in the dumb people category in this one. There's a lot of folks that would need to look at our players and who we're going to play and think about what kind of a scheme we want to run and maybe probably pick a coach who's really good at doing that. And I'm not qualified to make that call. I mean, I would love, if we got Jim Leonard, I'd be like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. If Dave Aranda gets fired and we got Dave Aranda, that'd be fantastic. The one thing I would tell people, I was just talking to Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire about this. Remember, guys, USC just wrote a $900 million check to settle a sexual assault scandal. We want nothing to do with NCAA misbehavior. So I will say I do not think that we will touch anybody that comes from a scandalous program or a scandalous background.
All right.
So you can just stop talking about somebody in a chat I was in earlier today said, "Oh, we should get Mel Tucker." Like, no, we're not touching that. Nobody that was with the Art Briles era, those people might as well be nuclear. We're going to pick somebody who's upstanding. And let's, by the way, let's give a shout out to Alex Grinch, who does a pretty good job working with good kids.
Yeah. Before I add some names, I want to thank everybody that's joining us today. This is actually the second live broadcast here on the new channel. I really appreciate it, and thankful for over 400 subscribers to the channel in the first month. So if you get a chance, hit the like button. Appreciate it. Share and subscribe with your friends. LBC Trojan.
Rick. I love it.
Thank you. And we'll continue to be dropping videos every week, preview, and we'll be doing post-game analysis and some special shows such as this, because news is always breaking. So that's why you want to hit the bell notification so you know when I go live. I appreciate you for joining us. Drop down in the chat, who do you think are some of your defensive coordinators that you think USC should be considering? And there's a laundry list. USC can go over after whoever they want to, because remember, in 2024, the college football playoff expands from 4 to 12 teams. USC goes to the Big Ten, and they're going to be on national TV pretty much every week. And so there will be DCs out there that want to work with USC, want to work for USC and Lincoln Riley. And I think you got to go to the top of the list, and you got to make some guys say no. And one of those guys is Phil Parker. He's the defensive coordinator at Iowa. And there's change going on in Iowa, as you mentioned earlier, Tony, with Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz is going to be terminated at the end of the year. He could resign earlier. Who knows? Yeah,
Kirk is still there.
Oh, Kirk is still there. But there's change going on there at Iowa. That's the first guy I would call. Dave Aranda is a name that's been brought up. Jim Leonard, yes. Make those guys say no. I think Dave Aranda, Southern California ties. And I think this is also going to help USC in recruiting, knowing that Grinch is not there, because there's a lot of recruits that, for one reason or another, didn't want to consider USC with his scheme.
Well, we just nailed one today.
Excuse me?
We just nailed another, 4 or 5 star cornerback or somebody today.
I have to have another cornerback. I mean, come on. I want a defensive lineman. I want linebackers. I want Rashans. Yes, we had another.
I'll take anybody right now. I want to play tomorrow.
We had a 2026 defensive back that committed, I think, earlier in the week. That's great. Congratulations to that young man. But moving on.
Thank you. Welcome to the family.
I think another name you have to consider is Morgan Scalley, the DC at Utah. He'll probably say no because he's got a great relationship with Kyle Whittingham. But Utah is going to the Big 12. USC is going to the Big 10. You don't know the ties that he has. Maybe he has some relationships in the Big 10. Who knows, right? And there's a better financial opportunity for him. You have to go after the best. USC has to go after the best.
Well, and the other thing that we can do is we can say to somebody, hey, you want to be a head coach? We'll give you head coach money to be our DC.
That's another thing as well.
We'll pay you bet. We'll pay, if you want to go to, I don't know, let's pick on somebody. Let's pick on somebody I like. You want to go to Bowling Green. You want to go to Toledo. You want to go to Akron. You want to go to Western Michigan. We'll pay you better than them to come be our DC.
And LW brings a great one. Joe Rossi, Minnesota. Is he tired of rowing the boat? Maybe he needs a change of scenery, and USC plays at Minnesota next year. So that is somebody that you have to consider as well.
No rowing the boat, please. We also got to get rid of those towel guys.
Yeah, the towel guys.
Whatever's going on with the towel guys,
Gixer, thank you. A loyal supporter on the Voice of College Football as well as the new channel. Appreciate you, Gixer. Hey,
Right on, Gixer.
change came today, and it was about time. I'm glad that USC made the change. It is not the expectation to be the 124th ranked defense in the country. I can't even imagine saying that. Last night, we still had a chance to win that game, and that's what's a little difficult to watch. But there's a book out on Lincoln Riley, and the opposing coaches know from the coin flip that defer if they win the flip, and they know Lincoln Riley is going to take the initial kickoff and want to have the ball, and he's always going to leave a couple minutes at the end of the half, and then these teams are figuring out how to score a late touchdown and then to get the ball for the opening kickoff of the second half, and they score a double whammy. And it's kind of becoming a pattern that the other team realizes that Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley weren't really making second half adjustments. And so you couple that with USC's lack of defense, is a recipe for disaster. And it hasn't happened once or twice. It's happened multiple times. The two Utah losses last year where they scored late, it happened in Colorado. If Colorado had 3 more minutes, they probably win that game. We saw what happened with Arizona. We saw what happened with Cal. Cal went for the 2-point conversion and missed. USC could legitimately be 5-5, Tony. Would you agree with that?
Real close.
You lose that Arizona game and at Cal, USC is
Real
5-5.
close.
Yeah, with a Heisman Trophy winner. So this change had to be made, and I'm glad that it was made. And we'll see. Hopefully, USC can hire somebody sometime here in the next 3 to 6 weeks before we get in the bowl season. Create some momentum as we're going into the off season, and give a boost to recruiting and try to.
Well, and again,
try to
you know, I
improve
mean,
on that.
again, I really think that the big thing that had to be done was just that statement that we know there's a problem and we're dealing with it. Now, imagine again if Lincoln Riley had said after the Notre Dame game or the Arizona State game, or fill in the blank, there is a problem and we're going to deal with it. We're going to make changes. We're not going to play it in the press, but we're going to make changes. Like, people would have said, "Oh, okay, I think they would have cut him a lot of flack." What people didn't want to hear was, "Oh, we're really close. Oh, this is only the second game I've ever lost here." Like, he was giving them the coach speak, which is the opposite of what they want to hear. Yeah, that would actually be my favorite of the hires, but
Yeah. And I agree with Jeff.
I really wanted Lou Holtz and not Pete Carroll, so I'm kind of glad we got Pete Carroll in the end anyway. So I'm going to put my faith in the good decision makers.
And I give Jeff Rodriguez. Thank you for tuning in,
He's
Jeff,
right.
a loyal supporter of the channel. Jeff,
Right on,
he
Jeff.
said to give up 300 yards rushing was an embarrassment. It was a total embarrassment. And Lincoln Riley got out coached by Kalen
Well, and
DeBoer.
what was it, Rick? Was it 200 of those or 195 or whatever of those were before contact?
199 before contact. So nobody was really to get
so
199
bad.
yards before getting hit cumulatively.
How do you
is
like
an
mathematically? How do you do that? You do
That's
that
an
with no
embarrassment.
contain of any kind.
None. And so that tells you that there's a couple issues with scheme, with players understanding the scheme, and just inability to tackle. So those 3 things are just a recipe for disaster. I think it was tweeted out. Matt Leinart had said several occasions this year players were out of position on the defensive side. Sua Cravens, a longtime USC Trojan.
We got those. Actually, those tweets are on the screen if you want to share it real quick.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Tony. So here is an indictment with Matt Leinart. USC has guys out of place all the time, every time and time again. Same issue. And Sua Cravens has said, "I played defense a long time, my entire career. I played in almost every defensive scheme or system you can come up with, at 3 different positions, D1 and pro. there have been times tonight I'm absolutely lost on some of the coverages and gap responsibilities of these players. So it, this is not the first time it's happened. I had friends texting me last night that played football, that coached football, and they could not believe in some instances guys weren't lined up in the correct positions as what Matt Leinart and Sewell are talking about. So this was when you have Matt Leinart tweeting that, that is problematic. Would you agree, Tony?
Yeah, and it wasn't just that. I mean, it was a lot of famous players were saying this is not okay. And that's why I said all week, and I took flack for it from people last night when I said it. I said we need to make a sign that shows the adults are back in charge.
Yeah.
I think we got that today.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, remember, we're acting like this is like the depths of despair. I mean, remember the Clay Helton teams that lost to Cal and Brigham Young and all kinds of other stuff. We're not there. We just have a bad defense that I think is actually a lot more talented than we give them credit for. So it's very possible that we turn the switch and flip this back on again and get this hopefully back on track.
And what happened last night is Kalen DeBoer outcoached Lincoln Riley. He basically said, yeah, you guys are going to be focused on our passing game and Penix. Stop the run. Nobody knew who Dylan Johnson was last night. They didn't know who he was. He had 24 carries, 244 yards. He had 10 yards a carry and multiple touchdowns. He didn't even have that in Pop Warner. This was a career day for this guy. He's never going to rush for more yards than he did last night. So basically, Kalen DeBoer and the offensive game plan was, hey, we're going to run the ball down your throat until you can stop it. And we couldn't. And oh, by the way, we're going to go ahead and mix in a little bit of these screens across the middle for 5 yards. And we're going to have two blockers out in front and punch you in the mouth. And then we're going to get another 15 yards before anybody touches them. And then we're going to notice that you're going to be out of alignment because everybody's been watching it all year. And in the second half, I don't know who it was, but over towards the right sideline, right in front of USC, the guy was wide open. We saw that all last night. Just the mistake after mistake. And it
should not be easy for them to make a 3rd and 16.
No, and to hear.
I mean, they were making 3rd and 16 like most people make 3rd and 2.
And that touchdown that was on the scramble was 3rd and long, and to find the guy in the end zone, the tight end in the end zone, that was ridiculous. And to hear Lincoln Riley being disingenuous that we were one holding call away that could have changed the game. Come on. Are you serious? How about 3 freaking defensive stops and you win by 14? Show some respect. I mean,
I agree. God. Again, I think that quite honestly, and I say this, you guys in the chat don't know this. My uncle's a baseball coach who used to have to teach the other Major League Baseball coaches how to deal with the media. They need to send the PR comms people to teach Lincoln Riley how to better deal with the media. He's actually not good at that.
Yeah, no, you'd mentioned that earlier, and that's been a concern. And definitely, he seems to be a little tone deaf.
Well, but the thing is, too, is that's a very learned skill. And the LA media are like hyenas. They're always ready to pounce. I mean, I forget the guy's name from the Daily News, the one who was suspended before, who's like just like the most sitting there like the definition of like angry keyboard warrior, just trashing the program. And so you've got, these very unhappy, nasty people who are always out after you. And so you it's easy to become defensive. It's easy to put up walls and try to push them away. And so, but I think that there's just a better way to handle the press. I mean, one of the things you'll notice, for example, Lincoln Riley doesn't call people by name in the press conferences. No. He doesn't involve them at all. I mean, and again, I've sat in so many Major League Baseball press conferences, I can't even count them. And the way you do it is you look at it and you say, when Luca from the Orange County Register, who's by the way just killing it, doing a great job with coverage, when Luke asks, why doesn't Lincoln Riley look at him and say, Luca, that's a really good question. Hey, when you were at practice last week, we talked about blah, 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 blah. So blah, blah, blah. Like Lincoln Riley doesn't handle them like that. Lincoln Riley answers questions like like he's in the Pentagon press briefing room being asked about a clandestine operation. And instead, I think that he really needs to embrace our beat reporters. I mean, I remember, and this is a really dorky thing, and it, of course, was in the worst season we've ever had in our recent memory. But I remember Dante Williams up in Wazoo when we beat Wazoo. You remember, like, when they fired Clay Helton and the team was in chaos, and they went up to Wazoo and Jackson Dart, they pulled that big win.
Yep.
And Dante Williams, like, led the beat reporters in a little cheer at the end because he said, "You guys are out there with us every day too." And
Right.
it was just, again, it's just like you have to learn how to partner with those guys because they're part of your ecosystem. Maybe not the LA Daily News guy because he's a really unhappy character, but everybody else is part of your ecosystem.
That guy's name is Scott Wolf, and I will not say another word about that guy. But
I don't know. I don't know him. He's always unhappy. I don't follow him.
Yes. Hey, I want to give a shout out to
probably a super good guy. I don't know him. I just know he's always unhappy with USC.
He's snarky. Let's put it that way. He was there covering USC for the Daily Trojan when I was there.
Okay, I'll tell you what. One of the other things I would do if I were Lincoln Riley is I would invite John Will. I would tell John Wilner he can come and do anything he wants at any time to watch my team. Because, like, you should have John Wilner. One of the other things, the other thing people don't realize with some of these reporters is that, and it's less on the coaches than on the ADs and stuff like that. But those reporters, by the way, are like the best, like, information and advising that you can get. And they really should be listening to those guys. Like, when you have the Wilners and the Max Olsons and the Stuart Mandells and stuff like that, get them to your practice anytime you can. Give them carte blanche access and also listen to what they have to say.
That's
something we should do better.
Well advised. Great advice, Tony. I want to give a shout out to Ben. He's an Oregon fan. Ben, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate
it.
Right on, Ben. And as you know, SC will be playing Oregon. I'm going to be appearing on Ben's pregame show next Tuesday. So I'll be tweeting it out, the time that I'll be on the show. So looking forward to it, Ben. We should have a good conversation. But as many of you know, one of the things I like to do is upgrade your tailgate. It's great news that USC is going to be upgrading its defensive coordinator. And so with that, they're going to be investing, and you should too be upgrading your beer selection. And I have one tonight for you, for those that like to partake. This is ironically from a brewery in Seattle because they pounded a nail in our defensive coordinator. It's called Rusty Nail by Fremont Brewing out of Seattle, Washington. They were a brewery that started in 2009. This is an oatmeal stout. It's barrel aged for 18 months in bourbon barrels. And it starts with an oatmeal stout, and then it is aged, like I mentioned, and that's when it becomes the Rusty Nail. It starts off as a nail oatmeal stout with pale malt, with smoked barley, and it's aged over cinnamon bark. And then it's poured into these barrels. It's aged for, like I said, 18 months, and it packs a punch. 13.3 ABV. It is rated 100 on Beer Advocate. And Beer Advocate is like, if you drink wine, it's like the Wine Spectator. Okay? So when you get 100, that pretty much is gold. And so look at that. This is a Rusty Nail. And I will repeat on the bottle for you guys out there what it says. It says that it packs a punch. Your palate, it will be challenged. Your perception of all about beer will be changing. And it'll entice you for another sip. So let's check out this Rusty Nail. I've never had one before. I don't know if Sergeant Pickles from Washington is still there. Let me know in the chat if you've had a Rusty Nail. Oh my God, that is amazing.
LBC always does the best
Analyzing on the tongue, that is full body. That packs a punch.
That'll upgrade your tailgate.
Yes, and that's what the next defensive coordinator needs to do. He needs to age this USC defense for the next 8 months. Teach them how to tackle and pack a punch and deliver a rusty nail. Deliver a
I
rusty
like it.
nail to the Big Ten. You bring that rusty nail because you got the memory from Seattle, what Seattle did to you. So get your rusty nail. It's the fall. Tony, the time just changed, right? It's going to get darker early. And speaking of darker, this oatmeal stout at 13.3% is phenomenal. I'm not really a stout drinker. I'm an IPA guy, but
Perfect for Pac-12 after dark.
In the fall and winter, I'll drink a little stout. And Trojans, if you're going to the Big Ten, you need to also upgrade and adapt and change your beer selection. So you might want to pack this to Ann Arbor. Might want to pack this to Minneapolis, okay? Because we're going to be going there. And you know they're going to be making fun of you if you be drinking that Natty Light and that Bud Light out there when it's like 22 degrees. Get yourself some Rusty Nail.
Yeah, we need real beer in LA. It's our way.
That's right.
It is the way.
Tony, any final thoughts as we wrap up this day? And I appreciate your time today, man. It's always great with you on the show, on the USC.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Post game show.
I would say, guys, let USC let USC take a breath. This week might be ugly. I mean, we might win, but it might be ugly. Take a breath. It's going to be okay. At the end of the day, it's just a game, and there's always next year, and we're going to be better next year. So I'm looking forward to it. Fight on, everybody.
And Tony, if anybody doesn't know, Tony Altomore just recently wrote an ebook. Why don't you share with us, Tony, how they can find your ebook?
Sure. You can go on my Twitter page. There's a link on there. There's a little link of how to get a hold of me. It's on there. I put together kind of a timeline of the Pacific Coast Conference and the Pac-12 because I found that people did not know about our wild history. And by the way, if you guys don't know this is the second time we've blown up basically our same conference. The Pac-12, actually, funny enough, is not 100 years old. We did it in the 1950s, exactly what we did right now, and completely blew up the conference. But then in the 1960s, we decided to take a vote and pretend like none of that had ever happened. So the Pac-12 literally, and by the way, the Pac-12's lawyers didn't even know this when they filed their own legal briefs, that actually the Pac-12 was founded in 1959. And the previous, 50 years was basically just made up. It's a wild history of a wild conference with wild schools who literally were always at each other with more ferociousness than any of the Real Housewives. So I hope you guys will read it and get a kick out of it.
Awesome. I've read part of it. It's phenomenal. Tony does a great job with the history, breaks it down, and there's a lot of stuff that I never knew that I'm learning, and it goes well with what's happening in conference realignment this last year. Tony, great job. And
thank you.
And Trojans, I'll be dropping a preview, or actually a post-game analysis video later, probably Monday, on my thoughts on the Washington game. Like I'd mentioned, I'm going to be going on Ben's show for an Oregon preview. I will have an Oregon fan on my show later in the week to preview the game. And then you can catch Tony and I on the Pac-12 Chat Show live Wednesdays at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern on the Voice of College Football. And then you can catch us next week post-game. It's going to be really early in the morning for you, Tony, late at night for me on the wrap-up show on Voice of College Football.
They're out to get me, Rick.
Yes, to wrap up the Oregon game. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And, hey, we move forward. We're going to be going after a new DC. And always, fight on.